We have this primitive brain, that makes us think that we have to
get out of that.
Put up our dukes, and it's just an instinctive thing. So for a lot of us, it's really hard to pull back from that.
And the training in Aikido is, and typically, if somebody in another art pushes you, you push back. But we don't. We go with it.
Right.
And in going with it, we neutralize the situation. There's nothing to fight. They have nobody to fight with.
Right.
And we have to do this over and over again, repeatedly, physically, so that we understand it on a different level.
I just think that's beautiful, Lynn. I think that's a beautiful insight that you have that correlates so perfectly with my model. I didn't know that before. I have not read your book, and now you're making me want to read it,
It'll be coming out in the maybe late July, early August, and other sequels coming up.
Well, you'll have to send me a pre-release copy, because it sounds like it goes right along with what I teach. It's very cool.
It sounds like it, because we resonate when we're speaking.
Yes. So why do you think people have such a hard time being able to not be reactive? Because from my experience, a lot of times people will know this information, they'll know what they need to do, and they just can't make themselves do it.
Being centered is what we practice also in Aikido, and that's not allowing our emotions to get in the way. We don't telegraph our emotions when an attack comes. The movements are very subtle. We have to learn to read people, and there's a subtlety. Maybe while they're speaking, it'll come out while they're talking. It'll come out in their body language. That's why it's really good to listen and to observe, because what they're saying is not necessarily what they're feeling.
So what I'm hearing you say, and I think this, again, goes along with what I teach, which is about focusing not on our own wounding, but on the other person.
That's right.
So
exactly right.
Shifting that awareness, because when you're focusing on your own wounding, you cannot help but get into emotions. But when you focus on the other person, it kind of takes you outside of yourself and allows you to get a real perspective on what's going on.
That's right. If we spend time being combative, we're not moving forward in our life.
No. Yeah.
That's not considered actively thinking. But if you're blaming people and circumstances where you are in life, you're actually being combative. That's a lower vibration. And combat begets combat. These are simple concepts, but they're
not so simple to do. No, they're not. They are very simple concepts. And people, right. I think, I don't know if you run into this, but a lot of times when people read my stuff, they'll think, oh, they already know this because it's so simple. But
layers and layers.
But hello, it's not really that simple,
No, it isn't. I think we also make it more, we overanalyze things, and we take that simplicity out of our life because we don't know, first of all, who we are. And when you're centered, and let's say a person that's striving toward self-actualization, they know exactly who they are all the time. They're not different with other people. They move deliberately through life. They don't have regrets when they make decisions. They don't take things personally. They're creative in life. They've learned to understand what their fears are, and they know they have to address them. It doesn't mean they're perfect in every way, but they're striving.
Yeah, because in my experience, people will, under certain, because life hands you things from time to time. It can't help it. It's, you lose a job, somebody that you love gets ill, you get ill. Things happen. No matter how evolved you are, how centered you are, things can throw you off center. And when that happens, you just have to understand that that's just part of life, and you are going to get triggered back into that old reactive stuff. It's going to happen. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're, not good. It's just part of what happens.
That's right. And again, society makes you feel bad, like you're a failure when you get a divorce. But there's times when it's the most positive thing to do. It's not bad. Divorce isn't bad.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's come back after our break and talk about that some more. This is Party 93.4. I'm mixologist Melody Brooke, and you're listening live to Oh Wow, This Changes Everything. It's brought to you live on party934.com and on 102.5 FM WXBO in New York City. And tune in every week because we'll be answering your questions about relationships, intimacy, and sexuality. And we'll be right back with Lynn after this song. Welcome back. We're talking with Lynn Fabia about why the divorce rate is climbing. And this is Party 93.4 and WXBO in New York City. So, Lynn, we were talking about why divorce can be a positive thing.
Absolutely. I think we tend to think that when society says we're a failure, we don't want to adhere to somebody else's belief that's not in your shoes. They don't know, again, all the details. Nobody knows all the information that's going through your mind as you're going through your relationship. And if someone decides to leave a relationship, number one, again, rather than being reactive, is that it wasn't personal. It's a decision they made based on something they wanted.
Or need, right.
They want to move in a different direction. It's not about you. And it doesn't mean it was a bad relationship. It means that it was just not the right one for both of them. So,
well, and sometimes, sometimes it is a bad relationship. You know, I know, like I was telling you earlier, I've been married. This is my third marriage. My first marriage, I was young. I was 24 and married a man who both of us, came from very traumatic childhoods, and neither of us really had any clue how to connect. And he was so full of anger, and I was so terrified of anger, and I didn't have a way to deal with it at all.
Sure.
So, but again, for me, it was a very good thing for me to go through the process of having been married, because I did learn so much about myself and my need to be able to have my own centered place when dealing with somebody's anger.
That's right. So you learned something. There was a diamond. There was a diamond in there, and there's a diamond in everything.
That and my daughter. My daughter's also a diamond too. I got to throw that in there. Got that from that too. So.
That is really good. But yes, there's relationships where there's relationships that are abusive.
Right.
And yet there's let's look at a relationship that's abusive, where the man is afraid to lose that power, so he controls, and the submissive, let's say the woman, is afraid of power.
Right.
So she hands it over to him and says, just take care of me.
Or vice versa. It can happen. It can happen the other way too, but it's more common.
Yeah.
But
absolutely, yeah. It's not talked about as much, but it does happen.
Right.
It's just not talked about as much. So when the woman decides that she wants to be in charge of her life, it creates an imbalance, because now he doesn't have anybody to control. And if she stays in, it could be much more difficult.
Yeah, this is what happened in my second marriage. Because I was, like you said, uncomfortable with my own power, and turned it all over to him, and without even realizing it. Of course, it was all unconscious, had no clue, and he was basically running everything. And then when I went back to school, and then it threatened his power, and it was war began.
That's right. There's the imbalance.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, because if I'd had more conscious awareness about it at the time, I think there might have been some differences in the ways I would have handled things, for sure. But most of us go through doing so much of what we do pretty unconsciously.
That's right. And we don't even know it's happening while it's happening.
No, don't have a clue.
Until we look back. And then what do we say? We say, if I would have known then
what I know now,
I knew now, things would have been different.
But the truth is, I didn't know that then.
So, but you've learned something.
Absolutely, and that again, there's the diamond. I learned so much about myself in that second marriage. There's just there's no being able to weigh how important that was in many ways.